Welcome to Masters of Masking, the podcast for and about those who've discovered their neurodivergent later in life. Join us as we dive into the lives of individuals with autism, ADHD, CPTSD and more. Hear their stories, learn about their challenges and celebrate their triumphs. Living, loving and thriving in their unique everyday lives. You're not alone, let's unmask the extraordinary together. Masters of Masking, tune in and embrace the journey.
There we go. Good morning, good morning. So, welcome to Masters of Masking, and with us today we have Kate Butler Ross. She's an author, editor and book mentor and founder of the Luminous Press. She helps coaches, experts and entrepreneurs to write and self-publish strategic and soulful books that grow their authority and funnel dream clients toward their signature offers. Kate began a career in national magazines back in 2002 as a writer and went on to commission and edit for titles including Woman and Home, Country and Living magazine. She's interviewed, profiled and ghostwritten the stories of hundreds of celebrities, industry leaders, Olympians and thought leaders, from Sharon Osbourne and Trudy Styler, Joe Malone, Karen Brady to Roger Moore and David Attenborough. Awesome! Just that little collection, I'm like, woo! She's written 5 books as a ghostwriter, 2 of her own, Soul Story, How to Tell Stories That Call in Your Soul Tribe, and her free ebook, Your Book Done. And you can find Kate's website, which will have all of the details there. So I shan't read it out.
No.
Hello.
Oh, hello. How are you? Thank you for
very well. I'm a tad red today. I don't know if I'm just hot or have I got too much sun yesterday. I don't know what it is.
No, you wouldn't notice. You look healthily flushed.
Healthy glow. If it fades halfway through, we know it's been a flush. So I'm so happy that you've managed to get on. Now I know that we kind of touched base several months ago now, and obviously summer holidays and things have been in the way. Not in the way, they've happened. Summer holidays have happened. I'm gonna block away my mouse because I have a tendency, it's my fiddle stick, so I fiddle with my mouse while I'm talking and end up with the arrow stuck up my nose. So the podcast is Masters of Masking, and really my idea of bringing us all together here is for people who've realized that they're neurodivergent later in life. And so many of us discover this off the back of our children, which you also did.
Yeah.
So I think really tell me a little bit first about how you discovered, when the penny dropped, as it were.
Well, never ever occurred to me in my wildest dreams. It never occurred to me. But my daughter's now nearly 11, but when she was 4, it never even occurred to me she was no neurodivergent either. Actually, what happened was she was very delayed in her physically, so walking and everything like that. So went down various routes as she'd walk until she was 2 because she was very hypermobile, and so we were going down various consultant routes. She's absolutely fine physically now, but she was just delayed. But we're going down all the routes as you do. And we're sitting talking to this, I can't remember what she was, a pediatric consultant. And she, we were talking about it, and I happened to mention that she had anxiety, which obviously is not very common for a 4-year-old to have anxiety. And she said to me, "Oh, I'm going to refer her to the pediatric neurological department." I was like, "Are you actually kidding me?" I was so cross with her. I was seething. I was like, how dare you? Anyway, obviously went along, discovered that actually ADHD, that does sound about right. Because obviously I knew what ADHD was. Well, I thought I knew what ADHD was. I thought ADHD was like that thing that little boys have, and they're all hyperactive and everything. And so it just never occurred to me. And then it just slowly unfolded. So I was listening to this conversation. We're in there for like 3 hours. And I kind of walked away like a little bit shell-shocked, because I thought, well, this hasn't come from nowhere. I mean, she's different to me. She is different to me. She's not how I was as a little girl. She is different. But it just suddenly made me real. So then, of course, I bought all the books on ADHD in girls, and I was reading them. I was like, oh my goodness, yes, this is me. And so then I went down the route. And actually, I didn't go down the route of getting diagnosed because I wanted a diagnosis. I actually went down the route of getting diagnosis because I was actually devastated when she got diagnosed with having ADHD. It was like a grief period. I felt I was really devastated. And so the reason I pursued a diagnosis was because I wanted to say to her, look, I've got it too, and I'm totally normal and well, normal. And so that's how the journey went. And then it took forever. It took absolutely forever. But by the time I actually got the assessment, which was like 5 years later, I was on the
For you.
Yeah, for me, I was on the waiting list for 5 years. I was just so convinced and knew, and I just told her, "Oh, that Mummy has it. Mummy has ADHD. You get it from me. We've both got these magical, brilliant, slightly annoying brains, but it's okay." And I've kind of learned. We've learned together, really, and it's been a great bonding process. It's been an interesting journey, but yeah. So that's it.
Have you ever felt the pieces of your life didn't quite fit, only to discover the missing piece later on? Unmasking Stories of Late Life Neurodivergence is a compelling collection of short stories that delves into the lives of individuals who uncovered their neurodivergence as adults. These stories explore the childhood quirks and misunderstood behaviours that now make sense, the impact of neurodivergence on relationships, careers and self-identity, the journey to acceptance, self-discovery and empowerment, the strategies and support systems that help these individuals thrive. Unmasking shines a light on the often overlooked experiences of adults discovering their neurodivergence, providing a rich tapestry of voices that resonate with authenticity and hope. Whether you're neurodivergent yourself, know someone who is, or are simply curious about these experiences, this collection offers a deeper understanding and appreciation for the diverse ways our mind work. Join us in celebrating the beauty of our neurodiversity and the strength found in unmasking our true selves. Each story is a testament to resilience, adaptability, and the power of knowing and loving who you really are. Discover the transformative power of late life diagnosis in Unmasking Stories of Late Life Neurodivergence. Available now on Amazon.
See, I love the fact that you went and did that for her, because I've my process has been slightly longer because my two daughters were older. They both, well, the younger daughter, she got a diagnosis of attention deficit disorder, not hyperactivity, when she was really small. But that was just because of the spaced out part. But the autism hasn't come until she's been like 26. But of course, I wasn't able to tell her until like last year, and it was like, yeah, I've got ADHD too. She's like, what? And I was like, you're not the only one here who can't process, and now you know why. And she was like, whoa. And that, like you say, it's been a long time in coming, but that certainly helped the bonding process now, because she used to say, we used to get really mad at me for such and such. Yeah, because I was overwhelmed.
Yeah. Oh God.
And now she's looking at my older daughter, who's 29. She was the one who came up, Mom, I think maybe you should read this book. But it's nice because you can then, they kind of, it goes full circle, and they kind of go, oh. And she sat and laughed. She said to both us, me and her dad, she said, oh, I can blame both of you now then, can't I? We were like, yeah, okay.
It's interesting because it's important to find out as a parent as well, because I can remember thinking I was such a rubbish mother. I can remember thinking I'm horrible, I'm an awful mother. I was imagined that I was going to be this mother, and I absolutely wasn't. I was this mother. And so there's so much shame and blame around that.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a while to understand it's like this perfect storm. We've got one with anxiety and ADHD, and we suspect she's on the autistic spectrum as well, but we're not sure about pursuing that diagnosis now for various reasons. And then there's me, and it's like this. And it takes so much to be the adult in that situation and realize that down to me to diffuse. And oh my gosh, there's so much forgiveness has gone on there, but then so much understanding and conversation about it. It's created this dialogue that she's now grown up with, which I hope, I mean, obviously, I'm sure I've done so many things I shouldn't do, and I do it all the time, but I hope it's created a dialogue where we're minimizing any damage.
Yes, and explaining the process as you go along.
Process, yeah.
And I think that's the important part as well, because you got a diagnosis when she was so much younger. You've been able to, obviously, we know what it's like having a neurodivergent child. And I had two growing up, and I didn't know. I knew one of them was neurodivergent, but she also had lots of other medical issues as well. So it was all the attention was focused. And then, but we didn't realize my older daughter was. And I don't think that I know that there was things that I just lost my shit. You know, and you're kind of going, I really shouldn't have done that. And now I understand why. And of course, back then you've been able to say, look, okay, I'm overwhelmed, and make sure you make the time. But I think if you don't understand your diagnosis, or you don't understand, you tend to overcompensate because you've constantly got this child you've got to look after, and I've got to be the adult and I need to do this, which we do. But then we need to make sure we keep time for ourselves to recalibrate and bring ourselves back down again, so that we can be the parent in the moment that we really don't feel like being it, but we've got to be. So that's really nice. I love that. So what would you say, what were the earliest signs, now that you look back, that you recognize in yourself? So once you started reading the books and you were kind of like,
well, do you know what, I do remember what it was like to be, I was a massive daydreamer. I lived on another planet, and in another world all the time. And I suppose really it's more from remembering what people would say to me and how people observed me. So actually I kind of remember, I see it through the lens of other people. So I was often called lazy, and I used to find that really actually it's actually a real trigger thing for me, actually, the word lazy now. And it was really unfair, because it was often because it wasn't that I was lazy, it's just sometimes I literally couldn't. I suppose it is laziness, isn't it? But it's that literally cannot do this, or whatever it is, or find an excuse, or found it too overwhelming. And I realize that now is why I was very overwhelmed. Like as a teenager, I look back now and I'm very overwhelmed by going clubbing, and would like find ways of getting out of doing stuff all the time, because I just found it all too much. And my friends, they used to call me Dappy. That was their thing, because I was just so like spaced out and never knew what was going on, and was always like sitting in the cloakroom doing my homework because I completely forgot that I had it, like copying it off my friends. And then like it just kind of went on, and there were lots of signs. Like I went to university and I dropped out. I just couldn't cope. I couldn't look after myself. And my parents, the funny thing is, because I was such a great masker, I came across when I was living at home like I was, you know, really street smart and really savvy and all this kind of stuff, because that's what I felt like I had to be. And so much so that actually when I went to university, my parents didn't even take me, because I was third child. They were like, oh, she can sort it out, she's fine. So my brother took me to university, went off to university hundreds of miles away, completely. I can remember just walking around the supermarket thinking, I have no idea what food to buy, how to feed myself. I don't know how to budget my money. And you like, part of it, just think, okay, it's personality or not being prepared. But I think it was I just couldn't get it together. And so I dropped out of university and ended up going somewhere. I ended up working for a year and actually staying at home. And I went to university and stayed at home because I just wasn't ready for it. I didn't have it together. And I look back and I feel sorry for myself. And, you know, low self-esteem, massively low self-esteem. Things like, actually, even I look back on, like I didn't get the A levels I thought I was going to get. And I felt too ashamed. The shame was such a big theme in my life. I felt too ashamed to go to my prize giving. I refused to go to my prize giving, wouldn't go back to school, wouldn't speak to any of my teachers. And it's just things. So I think that really is the kind of the shame thing. I mean, there's so many signs, you know, you just look back at your patterns of your life.
And you think, how did nobody pick up on this before?
Yeah. And it would I think actually, because I think you're just different. They just think you're different. And I have always been very different, a bit quirky, but knowing my own mind. Like I went off on my own and resigned my job literally overnight, because I was a journalist and I had a really good job. And literally overnight I was like, I'm leaving my job, and I resigned, because I just couldn't cope with the pressure of it anymore. I just thought, no, I don't want that. I wanted the freedom. I wanted to work for myself. I don't like being told what to do. I like to own my time. I like to be able to look after myself, because I know what I need to thrive. Fit into the box of what everybody else is, like a 9-to-5 job. And I realize now that these are all signs. I tell you the other thing, which I look back, and I'm really lucky, and I think this is often the case, to have found a partner who has just always accepted me. And it's funny, he never really realized I had ADHD until I kind of like joined the dots. And now it's like, I realize now, it's so obvious. But like things like he used to set my breakfast out for me in the morning. He used to leave a long time before me, because I couldn't get up in the mornings, obviously. because he knew I wouldn't eat anything otherwise. And he used to make me a packed lunch because he knew otherwise I was going to be spending like a tenner on lunch because I was just not organized enough to sort myself out. And he just kind of fell into that role. And it sounds really pathetic, but I needed someone.
That caretaker part. I
needed someone like that safety net of somebody who could just like ease me into being an adult. And that's what he did basically. And obviously I can function now and I can feed myself now, but it took me so much longer to do those things. So I don't know, I'm sure lots of people, I think everyone's story is very different and everybody's presents in different ways, but that was me. I think they were the most obvious signs.
So when you said before about the grief that you felt when you got your daughter's diagnosis, was that grief about her being diagnosed with ADHD, or was it the realization that you had ADHD?
Funnily enough, it was the grief about, it was initially that she was diagnosed because I didn't fully understand it. And you just want your children to be perfect. You don't you don't want them to have to navigate anything. You don't want them to have anything that's going to make them stand out or be different or struggle.
Yep.
So that, and it was like a complete grief. I remember just crying for 2 weeks. Wasn't really thinking about me, more about me. I was just like, oh, well, I've got it. I wasn't thinking about what that meant or the implications. That took a long time to sink back and sink in. I tell you, when I did go through that grief feeling is when I had my initial met to get my diagnosis. And you know, you have to fill out that form first. And you have to, I got my husband to fill out the form, and it was like really interesting seeing, oh my gosh, that's what you think, that's how you see me. And then having to sit down and have the conversation where you just basically have to justify, oh, these are all the things in my life where I fail, basically. And that was such a, I've actually found it, I didn't find it cathartic, I found it really shaming. It was all the things that I don't like about myself. Like, for example, when my daughter started school, I could not get my shit together to get her to school. And every single day, probably for the first 4 or 5 months, she had to go in through the office because I couldn't get to school in time. And that, oh my God, I felt so ashamed that I couldn't get her and the baby and me out the door just on time. Like, how? And I just felt like it was, I felt ashamed. And so then I kind of went through a bit of a grief period. But on the whole, this is who I am. Like, it was more that process.
It's easy to accept the fact that who you, yeah.
But, you know, I'm happy with who I am. I don't want to be different. I wouldn't want to change. I do wish I had the gift of understanding myself for longer, because it's a gift to understand yourself. Because while I wouldn't want to change how my life has gone, I can see some very definite points in my life which have gone wrong because of it. And while I'm very like, you know, this is the journey I've been on, and I wouldn't have this life that I love now if I hadn't been on that journey. I know that I could have avoided a lot of pain and things that I wish hadn't happened.
Yeah, I can identify with that as well. I think I certainly finding out it wasn't a case of, a lot of people kind of go through a grief period, and I didn't really feel like I did. But the more I kind of started, and you start to realize that something will happen, and you'll be like, oh, of course, that's because of that. And then you go, oh, I wish I'd done that better. Not I wish I'd changed it, I just wish I'd done it better. But I think again, it brings it back to the fact that, you know, you being able to be yourself for your daughter, because I think it's difficult when you're wishing you were somebody else and you're like looking at your children, they're also diagnosed. You can't wish you're somebody else.
No.
You know?
I see there's so many positive things to having ADHD as well, and I choose to focus on those, and I choose to look at, you know, the things now that when I was speaking to the psychiatrist and talking about them shamefully, and it felt like shame. To be honest, generally in life, I just see, oh, well, that's just how I am. And we laugh about it. We laugh about the fact that, you know, I went to my friend's house and I was talking on their portable phone and I lost their phone. Couldn't find where we put it. And it turned out I put it in the fridge. And, you know, things like that. We laugh about this, and I do these things all the time. That's what my life is like. But there are also brilliant things about having ADHD, and this is what we focus on. We don't talk negatively about having ADHD. We talk about it like, oh, well, this is because of this. We don't talk about it negatively, and we really
understanding, to
the extent that my son is like, do I have a special brain? I was like, well, you do have a special brain, but it's just a slightly different one, you know, it's just a different flavor, you know. So we speak about it really positively all the time, and I need to speak about it positively, and I never want my daughter to see it as a handicap, you know, as a, so that's why we do that. But there are so many brilliant things. She is so creative. I am very creative, obviously. That's the work I do. And I see things differently to other people. And it's funny, I always think to myself, because my husband's the opposite. He couldn't be more, I suppose this is why I was attracted to him, really. He couldn't be more stable and grounded and unmagical thinking. He couldn't be. And I just feel like he's like this big heavy anchor in the ground, and I'm like this helium balloon, and we kind of find that balance somewhere in the middle. And I think, you know, we need that balance. And but I see that we both bring important
important things to the table. Yeah. Okay. Now, what misconceptions and stereotypes are there about neurodivergency that you would like to change?
I think the understanding of girls is quite an important thing. I think, well, there's one thing, and I've seen it a lot recently. So I had it a lot whenever my daughter was diagnosed, is that, oh, everyone's getting diagnosed with ADHD now. Everyone's got autism. Everyone's on the spectrum. And that idea was like, everyone's on the spectrum. I'm like, well, okay, yes, everyone is. But it really belittles the reality of what it's like. And I find that annoying. I do find that annoying. And I find it annoying that it's so nuanced being neurodiverse. It's not a, oh, well, here are these, everyone's going to be all these things on this list. It's not like that. And I think there is an assumption that it's a bit of a jumping on the bandwagon-y thing. And then there's people saying, well, I think I've got ADHD. And I just think, oh, they might do. But I think a lot of people say it, but it's not that. It's more that they've got a busy life or whatever, and they don't understand.
Or they're dysregulated.
Yeah, they're dysregulated, and they don't understand the breadth of what comes with it. Like I would say my daughter has very high anxiety. I struggle with anxiety massively. The burnout is unbelievable. I still can't figure out how to get out of that cycle. I'm in a constant burnout cycle. Regulation is so important, and that's a challenge for me. So I'd like to, it's the conception of thinking it's a fad or it's a new thing. And the interesting thing is, since my daughter was diagnosed, since I've been diagnosed, it has opened up a can of worms. And it's really obvious my mum has ADHD, and it's even more obvious that my nan has. She's now 98, but my nan had ADHD. It's just so obvious that it's that family trait. So it's the idea that the faddiness, but then also specifically how when my daughter was diagnosed, I went in to speak to her reception teacher with her diagnosis, and I said to her, Alan, I don't want to say her name, she has ADHD, and she said to me, oh, I'm sorry, but I've seen kids with ADHD and she doesn't have it. And I was like, no, I'm sorry, you obviously don't understand how it presents in girls, and I think you need to educate yourself on that. And it made me really cross. It's this assumption that because girls are so good at masking that it can't be so bad. But you know, they're not all of them, but they're not like smashing up classrooms and you know, being really impulsive like that, or whatever it might be, in the most extreme versions of how it can present in boys. But then what happens is they're like this little pressure cooker, and then they come home and they explode and they can't cope, and they have shame and they have low self-esteem, and
they're hiding. They're just constantly in hiding mode. Yeah,
hiding mode, and it's just so terrible for their nervous system. That's what I would want people to understand more, and there to be more kindness around it.
I think for me, with the part about kindness, I think that's one of the things, as a human race, there needs to be more kindness, because it's one of the things, if you look at any kind of negative interaction between human beings, it's all based on a lack of kindness and respect, isn't it? And I think, like you said, the neurodivergence in so many ways, as much as on the autism spectrum as the ADHD, it presents in so many ways depending on the people and depending on male and female.
Mhm.
And there needs to be more understanding about that. And I think that, like you say, the people are talking about jumping on the bandwagon. One of the things that I'm trying to work on over here in the schools is the fact that, you know, kids are dysregulated, but they're dysregulated because they live with dysregulated parents.
Mhm.
They're dysregulated because they get up in the morning and the first thing they do is get a massive dopamine hit from the mobile phones.
Yeah.
And the last thing they do at night is get a massive hit from the mobile phone. So they're sleeping, not sleeping well. So there's a whole thing there. And I think there are a lot of people going, oh yeah, I've got ADHD. No, you've got symptoms.
Yeah.
Symptoms that relate to having a dysregulated nervous system, to having your dopamine spiked all over the place. And it is causing problems in the health service, both in Spain and in the UK, with more and more people coming and asking for a diagnosis who really need to learn how to regulate. And I think that needs to be brought into schools, because a lot of homes aren't going to do it. But yeah, I think that would be a big step for schools to be able to help the kids with those things and regulate. And of course, schools are going more to screens
Oh yeah.
books, which isn't going to help.
No.
I think
All day at school.
Yeah. But we'll see. It's going to be an interesting few years, I think, as it kind of comes around and we see how things develop. Now, you talked before about your younger self. I'm going to come to that in a second. But what coping strategies do you think you developed, not necessarily as a child, but even as an adult, to kind of get through and keep going?
Coping strategies. Well, I'm the kind of person who's always got something new going on. I've always got something, a new method, a new thing that I'm going to try. To be honest, nothing works for me better than, I tell you, I found bullet journals really useful for me, because I need to be interactive and doing something, create something, and be actively engaged with my to-do list and my organization. That's very helpful for me. So understanding that when something's digital, it doesn't go in. If I'm physically writing it, it does go in. Socially, I'm very sociable, but I also struggle in certain social situations. And I know that one of my coping strategies is to become aloof. And I don't mean to do that. And I realize that I come across as a bit aloof and not very approachable, which is weird, because if you don't know me at all, I'd be very friendly. Or if you know me very well, I'd be very friendly. But it's that kind of that middle ground. I really struggle with people that you vaguely know, or because I have this assumption that they don't recognize me, or they're not going to know who I am. Or
100%. That is me. 100%.
Oh, really? So then I just don't know how to cope, or I'm really worried about not knowing what conversation to have, because I often will be very random in my conversation because I'm panicking, or I'll come out with too much information. So I have this removed this approach where I switch off really, and try. I've become repel people a little bit. And I know that's not necessarily the best one, but that is a coping mechanism for me, because I get a bit overwhelmed by it all.
I find that with the football parents, because we've got 3 boys and 3 football teams with 3 groups of football parents. And they regularly change. That every year they might change teams, so there's a new whole load of things again. And I'm like, so now I just kind of go hi and go away. And I know that they think I'm a snotty cow. I know that, but I'm like, I just don't have the energy for this to change every year. If there's one group that I know really, really well now, and that I'm fine with them, and I've even come to the point and I'm like, look, I'm neurodivergent. I might be a little bit, and they're like, oh, cool. So they're all fine. If they see me on my own, they leave me. But the new people, I'm like, and you can just tell, and I'm like, oh, yeah, like you say, a bit aloof, but it's just easier, because sometimes like that, if it's too much information, random conversations, or the too much information, because it's sport and because I work with the body, something will come up and I'll be like, and they'll all be like, oh, shut up, Judith. They didn't need to know that much stuff. Be that technical.
That's the other thing, isn't it? Like, because the other thing is, when I know about something, or I'm interested about something, because I think the other thing is, I said to my sister, I am not interested in surface level relationships or acquaintances. I literally want to just go straight in and have the deep conversations about life and, quantum physics and personal development. I'm just not interested in surface level chit chat, and that makes it very hard, just being like a school mum on a gate or a thing like that, because and I'm not really sure where I'm going with that because I've lost my thread, but I think that's just one of the things. It's just I either want to go deep or I don't want to go at all, because I either really love you or I can't invest my energy in you, because I just have a very limited amount of energy. I can very overwhelmed. So actually something that's been really important for me is mindset, spirituality, meditation, connecting with guides, things like that. I find my tribe of people who can connect with me on that level. Really important. I have my safe people, the people who I know I can just show up with and be as I am. Leaving my job was a coping mechanism. It was, I couldn't cope with showing up in the office. I can remember sitting at my desk thinking, oh, they're having a little chat over there at their desk. They're doing that thing called small talk. And people would come over to me and I literally don't know what to say. Like, I literally just smile like this. It was so embarrassing. Just there's so many things. And my job was very, I'd have to go out and meet a lot of people. And I felt like I just was masking all the time. I felt imposter syndrome enormously. And I was just like, no, I just really want to be at home alone. Walk my dog, see the people who I love, and that's it really. And it's just understanding to design your life in the way that suits your nervous system. And that's what suits me.
I think for me the catalyst was the quarantine for COVID, because I was forced to do it, and it was just like, oh, this is nice. Like this. And then afterwards I was like, oh, I'm not going back to that. No. And I tried to do coffees and things, and it was like, no.
I mean, funnily enough, this morning I was thinking to myself, I think I could do with being a little bit more sociable. I think because I do love, part of the reason I run my business and do online business is I like having chats with people and this kind of thing, talking about stuff that is interesting. And I thought to myself, what I could do with is like maybe creating a date with someone I know that I get on well with, and we have something interesting to talk about, and doing that every week. And so me and my sister are very close. We need to probably get better at doing something like that. Or me and my best friend used to meet for lunch every 2 weeks, where I get that personal interaction.
Yeah.
So it's okay for me to go back and hermit for the rest of the time, because I think it's very easy to hermit all the time. And while it keeps me regulated, I think it can then easily, like the pendulum can swim the other way, and then you can get
a bit more richness in life. It's like, I remember saying years ago, it wasn't good for me staying home with the kids. My excuse was, it wasn't good for me staying at home, being a stay-at-home mum with the kids. I needed to go to work because it made me more interesting, because then I had things to come back and talk about. That was my excuse. Now I realize it was an excuse, and I just couldn't. But now when I think about it, I think, do you know what, just add in richness. And because I work from home as well, so I work from home, I'm here all the time. It's really easy to never go out and see anybody other than clients, which is wonderful, but really it needs more richness in life, doesn't it, to be able to just kind of let loose and be yourself. So I think I would have to check that box with you as well. I need to go a little bit more sociable and do a little bit more stuff. How is your daughter coping now with everything that's with school and life? And
we go, I think it's very cyclical. And so she'll go through stages where there's this, I don't know, leap in what's expected of them. And then everything is all over the place with dysregulation. And we'll have to work very hard at home to meet that added pressure. And then it will iron itself out. I mean, one thing that was a big issue which broke my heart a lot was friendships, was the social side. That's really her challenge at school, is the friendships and the social side. She is the loveliest. She literally is just pure. She just loves everyone, gets on with everyone, thinks everyone's her friend, but obviously the reality is not that. And that is a navigating, but interesting, she's friends with only boys, not only boys but mainly boys. And I think it's because boys, you can cope with the emotional range of a boy when they're 10, whereas it's harder with girls who are much more complicated. But we work hard on it. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm not fabulous, but we do spend a lot of time. We talk things through. I never let things go. Obviously, it's sometimes hard to get them to vocalize what's going on, but the minute we can, we do that. We use visualization and meditation, and we've done that for a long time, because sleep was an issue, anxiety at bedtime, massive issue. So we use that a lot. But it is a constant. You can't ever take your eye off the ball with it. You're constantly the minute you do, that's when everything blows up, and you blow up as well, because I blow up as well, because I haven't prepared myself that if I do this, she's going to do this, and now I'm going to do that, and everyone's screaming at each other, and then I dropped her off school and I just feel terrible guilt, and I can't have that. So it is constant. It takes constant conscious awareness of how we manage things. It's quite exhausting, actually, because as a parent, you can never get your eye off the ball. You know,
like, with my younger daughter, I would say the same. She was diagnosed with VCFS, first of all, DiGeorge syndrome, and the ADD came as part of that package, along with lots of other things. And with her, it was a constant thing. And you'd think, oh, we just reached something, and then, as you say, something would change. Then it'd be more meetings at school, and it'd be more support, and more this and more that. And now looking back, she's 26, 27. Just turned 27, and got her own flat, always shared with other people, and got her own flat recently, and messaged me the other day, I don't know if I should go upstairs and tell the man. And I'm like, tell the man what? What are you going to tell the man? That he's making too much noise? I was evidently in the middle of a proper full-on meltdown, and was like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I was like, okay. Then I got a recording of the noise, and I was like, okay, let's like break this down and come back a little bit. And I'm really thankful. I learned tapping many, many years ago. And when she was like 5, we used to tap on a teddy bear because she didn't like me touching her. Should have known at the time. She didn't like me touching her, so we used to tap on the teddy bear and do EFT, and she still does EFT now. She's like, but when I'm really bad at it, have you done any tapping? No. So I sent a quick script over for the guy upstairs rather than go upstairs and try and kill the man. So we did all that on Saturday. So and it will. That's the first time we've had an emergency for a while. But it is constant. But I'm thankful that all of the things that we talked about, and I didn't do the best job in the world, but when I look back, I think, you know what, we didn't do too bad, because there's so many things there that they've got to deal with. And I've lost my train of thought there. It's gone. This is when we talk to people. I've got a couple of clients as well who are ADHD and autism, and we laugh at each other because we can kind of be in the middle of something and just go,
it's gone.
And then you'll go, I knew what it was, and we'll come back to it. But yeah, I think what you said before about with your daughter, the understanding part, if you talk everything through, because I know from a professional point with the majority of the clients, because I work with a lot of people who when we're working with past traumas, and the majority of things that come up when we do regression work is the fact that nobody ever spoke to them. They never understood. So when they were smaller, they were left to make up their own minds about what was going on and make up their own stories about going on. And subsequently, they make up these stories that are completely off the wall, usually pointed badly towards themselves. And they end up traumatized because they didn't have a regulated parent who at the time could say, no, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. Don't worry about that. It's not your fault. Yeah. So it's lovely that your daughter's got you to be able to do that with her now.
Yeah, I think it's a really important thing, actually. And I think over the last few years, I've very much been on that journey and learning about, unconscious mind and how we develop our beliefs before we're 7. And so obviously knowing all that and understanding that, and having done a lot of work on it myself. My mum's an RTT therapist. And so, I understand about those kind of things to a certain extent. It makes me very aware, because there can be some really, the tiniest things can just feel enormous for them, and then that's this ingrained belief that I am whatever, I am this, I am
important enough, or
stupid. I mean, funnily enough, this is something that she will often do when she has lashed out or whatever. She'll say, I'm stupid, I'm so stupid, and she'll really hate on herself, and I can't bear it, and that's when I know I have to come in and get her to see it in a more, you can't reason with them, but just to calm her down and help her put it into perspective. And I think I just try very hard with that, and I don't succeed every time, I don't catch every moment, but I try as hard as I can.
I think a lot of it as well is the seeds are being planted, so even though it might not go in at the time, some of it goes in. Not all of it, but some of it goes in, and there's a little seed planted there. And there will be a time at some point in the future, and she'll come back and say, Mum, do you remember such and such a thing? And you'll be like, I don't even remember saying that. And they'll remember. They do remember.
They do.
And I know mine being older now, they come back and go, Mum, you did this. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah. And this happens. And I'm like, okay, evidently I was not in the right headspace at that moment to remember any of that. And because I've got the 2 boys do the same. Do you remember when we were little and this happened? And I'm like, no. And they said, well, you said this, and then that happened, and then I don't remember. And they remember. And I'm like, okay, awesome.
You're also big in their life.
Good job.
Yeah, and because you're so big in their life, and I think that's the other thing I'm aware of. Like, I am such a big part of my children's lives, whereas my children are a big part of my lives as well. But there's so much, our lives broaden out so much as we get older. So the things that happen at that age are just in 10 times, they're 10x, aren't they?
Yeah.
And so they remember the conversations and the moments and the, you know, whereas we're all, particularly if you've got an ADHD brain, we're all like, oh, like this, on to the next thing as you get older, and there's so many things to balance and hold in your head. So yeah.
What you did mention before about when, if to say to your younger self, what do you feel would be the now that you understand what neurodivergence is, what's something that you would maybe go back to your younger self and tell her?
I think I wish she could understand that she doesn't have to be like all the other girls. I wish she could understand that it was okay to not love all the things that they loved, and to need that quieter space, and to not have to. It's really difficult because obviously when you're little, you pretend because you want to fit in, because you don't want to be isolated, you don't want to be on the edge of the tribe. And so whether you're neurodiverse or not, you're constantly trying to fit in and do that thing. But I think when you're neurodiverse, I think it's really important to embrace, because you're not going to change. You are going to have that brain always. It's not something that is going to change through a magic pill or through a change in circumstance. That's your brain. And I think allowing myself to come to terms with that's, you know, starting to plant those seeds. This is how your brain works. So you aren't going to love doing these things. You are going to need the quiet time. You are going to struggle with this. You are going to forget things, and it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you can't remember it's PE and you forget your PE kit, or that you know, those little things that constantly, I think there was such little things, but I felt shame was built from an early age in myself. Like, why can't I just do that right? Why do I do this wrong all the time?
But you know, I also think as girls, as you said before, ADHD presents differently in girls than it does to boys. I think girls are very much more, even though we're like, we're very much more aware of the look that somebody gives, or the sigh as you're talking about something, or we pick up on things that aren't necessarily spoken. And I think we pick up on the body language and everything. I was laughing about this the other day. Something came up and I was like, oh my God, I'd read a book on body language when I was 9. Who reads a book on body language when they're 9? You know? Anyway, and I do think that we pick up on all of these little signs and signals. So we will very quickly switch our behavior or the way we speak about something, so that we fit in, so that we don't get the looks. We don't like the looks because, like you say, it makes us feel ashamed, or gosh, I'm a bit stupid, I better shut up now.
Yeah.
And we'll pick up on that, whereas I don't think boys do. I don't think boys are much more, not all of them, but the majority of the boys are just like, they'll just keep going without picking anything up.
No, yeah, they don't read between the lines. They don't see the nuance in the moment. But I think that's most boys, you know. I think they are less switched on to those subtle cues. And I think it's all, isn't it? It's all about the evolution of women. We had to be, you know, able to spot the stranger, receive the lie, read behind the, you know, read what the words are really saying, you know, that kind of thing. Whereas boys were all about action and doing and everything. But yeah, I always sort of thought it was really interesting as well that that there's an evolutionary purpose to the person with ADHD, because they're the ones who beat out, you know, if you're in like tribal society, we'd be the ones who'd go out ahead, see where the good land is, the best hunting ground, because we'd just be like, whoa, we're out there, we're excited, we're curious, we're, you know, and that's another thing. Like, you know, I think it can feel, so when something has a label and it has a name and it has a criteria and all these comorbidities and everything, it can start to feel like it's a problem. Yes. Whereas when you see it from the point of view that actually it's just the way some brains have evolved and they had a purpose and they have so many positive things, it just feels different, I think. And yeah, I'm not really sure where I'm going with that one, but yeah.
I think with that comes the understanding, doesn't it? So it's like, what you do and what I do are two completely different things. However, we've got similarities in our brains because of what, with the ADHD. But it's the part that, there's a place for everybody and not everybody's going to behave the same. And this is the analogy. I think I've talked about this in one of the other episodes. I'm trying to remember not to repeat things. To have a stove, and you've got like the different knobs, and some are sensory issues and some is like impulsivity and other things, so you've got all of these things and everybody's got a little bit of each. Some have got more and some have got less. But when you're looking at, like you say, in the tribe, I talk to my kids about this now. My ex-husband, we would never have gone anywhere and done anything if he hadn't been with me.
Yes.
Because I would have been like that, let's go now, and he'd be like, well, why now? No, let's go now. And he'd go, we'll go tomorrow. No, we need to go now. So we'd go and do so many awesome things. But it was because of my ADHD when I was younger that I may just go out. I'm not so much that I'm like, oh, do we really have to? Maybe we'll go tomorrow. Maybe we'll plan it for next month and then not go. But I think a lot of that's menopause. But I think, like you say, there's a place for everything. And as long as our children understand that and young people start to realize that, a tag can get really heavy. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be heavy.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be heavy. It doesn't have to mean anything. It could be as you choose it. And this is the other thing that, I don't believe in the whole thing, you shouldn't label your children thing, because I think it could be useful, because it's actually her getting that label, if, she's not labeled with it, she's her having that diagnosis. Oh my gosh, it helped me understand her. If I hadn't gone down that path, if I hadn't been told, I would have thought I was a terrible mother. I would have thought, I don't understand her. Why is she so difficult? Why is life so difficult? Why is going to the shopping centre and going up a flight of stairs such a nightmare? Why does she think that every building that's higher than 2 stories is going to collapse on her? I just think, oh my God. And then we would have had a completely different relationship. But so it served a purpose. It served a purpose, but it was almost like it was a gateway into greater understanding and exploration, and allowing her to be who she is, and actually allowing myself to be who I am as well. She's been such a great teacher to me. She's been such a great teacher, seeing how she navigates the world, and the things that she doesn't know to mask yet, like seeing her, the things that she says without masking it, like just, I think, your brain just works differently and it's beautiful, and I don't ever want you to lose that or feel like you need to hide it.
I had a question come up then in my head and it's gone again. It was round about the daughter. What was it about? I was thinking about my daughter at the time. Gosh, that's bad, isn't it? I think the sun evidently, I have gone down, haven't I? I'm not quite as red as I was. Evidently I was having the part with the girls, that's gone. Maybe I'll edit this part out, maybe I won't. I think I usually do that. I'll edit this bit out where I've completely forgot what I'm talking about, and then I don't
That's just normal, isn't it?
No, it's gone.
That's okay. I mean, with girls, it is completely different, and I think it's funny because I look at my husband, who's not neurodiverse in any way, but I have helped him understand. I think he would have struggled with her as well, because so that's the other thing, is so much of it is hidden with a girl, and so people, they just don't get it. They don't understand it, and I think he would have really struggled with her, or made her do things that she really isn't ready for. But because we've been able to learn together and kind of from a really young age, our whole lives have been adapted, and we can plan ahead and think ahead. And obviously it doesn't always work, but things like going on holiday is like a massive deal, change of scene, change of environment, and it's something actually in the early days he didn't get, but now he understands, and we're thinking together and planning together. And whereas with the boy, it's maybe more in your face and obvious what they need, whereas with the girl, write it down. And
well, this is with my older daughter, it just wasn't even considered. She was very much the drawer, the writer, the dreamer, the airy fairy one. It was like, oh, she's just a creative soul, she's an artist. And now she laughed, but you kept on telling me I was an artist. In actual fact, I was with the autism, and I'm like, okay. But no, we just. But I think there's a level of acceptance there. And she said, I think that's part. She said, I can't be annoyed, because I said, would a diagnosis have helped you early? And she said, yeah. And I said, right, okay. And then she said, but the thing is, she said, I love the way you brought me up because you accepted me anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's
just the way she was creative and she was this and she was that, but it was just who she was, and it was okay. We were okay with that.
Yeah, as long as you're not having a preconceived idea of what you want your child to be, and you're not trying to fit them into a box, a diagnosis doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I think we did have moments. I think there were moments, and I was like, "Oh my God, why can you not just?" You know, but I think that was through the teenage years, and there was an element there of like me being dysregulated because there was frustration, and them being dysregulated because they were teenagers.
Yeah.
But then later on, coming through it and kind of going, "Oh yeah, of course, we forgot about those moments that we all got a bit tense." Teenage years.
You know, it's all part of the journey.
Well, what I was going to thinking about has not come back to me. It'll come back to me the minute we hang up, probably. It's been wonderful talking to you. Just give me a quick rundown on who would be your perfect client, your perfect soul client to work with.
My perfect soul client. Well, somebody who is really passionate about their work, somebody who is a real expert in what they do, and their mission is to shift people's perspective, change the world, for open people's minds. I work with some really interestingly people whose brains just work differently, and so often they end up having ADHD. It's so funny how you're just attracted to each other. Not only people with ADHD, but they're often very creative people, multi-potentialites who are interested in so many things, are constantly very open-minded, constantly learning, and wanting to make a positive impact in the world, who, yes, they want to be successful, but yes, they believe that they can be successful and make a positive impact in the world. And they're really my people who are kind of open-minded and constantly searching and exploring and creating. So that's just kind of like the general theme, but obviously it's mainly experts and coaches, but so many people in that area, in healing and therapists and stuff, they are people like that. And
And then once you find that perfect person, that tribe core person for you, what would you be able to help them do?
So what is a really big thing for me? So I help people write books, and I specifically help them write books which are going to help them share their message with more people, share their unique message, figure out, even what that is, and use it as part of a book funnel to drive clients and customers towards their signature offers. But I think the thing that makes it different is I don't want you to write a book that is like an extended sales script, and you don't want to either. My clients don't want that either. They don't want that cynical feeling of like, I'm just doing this so you can buy my thing. I want people to write books that have strategy and soul. So they're books that create connection, and they're books that create genuine transformation and perspective shifts in anyone who reads it. But also it shows, if you want to go deeper, this is how you can do it. Because I think that's the thing that you see in this, like in the space that I work in. People write lots of books, and they write books that are all about the soul, but then it does nothing for their business. Literally nothing happens because they haven't thought about the strategy, or they do that thing which is all about the sales pitch, and then, but again, it also doesn't really do anything for the business because nobody feels the connection. And so it's like bringing those two things together. So I like to say I help people write books with strategy and soul. And
I would say the way that you explain that actually really came from within. It was a beautiful explanation of what you do for somebody. So it tells for itself that there's definitely a soul thing there, because that's what you feel. That's what I felt. Well, so I shall stop my gabble, and I will say thank you so much for joining me today. And for those that are listening to the podcast, I am very sure that Kate would be more than willing to chat to you if you would like to get your soul story out there. And if you've got any questions, send them over to her or to me, and all of Kate's details are in the episode details below or above, or wherever they turn out on the episode that you're listening to. So thank you so much for joining me, and I shall sign off for today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on Masters of Masking. I hope this episode brought you new insights, a new sense of connection, and maybe even a smile. Remember, whether you're just discovering your own neurodivergence or have been navigating it for years, you're part of a community that values, understands, and celebrates every unique aspect of who you are. We're all in this together, learning, growing, and embracing our beautifully diverse minds. Stay kind to yourself, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.
Judith helps you transform your life by healing your past. Through nervous system care and self-discovery, she guides you on a path to a calmer, more empowered you. This work is especially important for neurodivergent individuals, as it provides deeper understanding and healing of the nervous system, helping to manage overwhelm, reduce stress, and foster self-compassion. Ready to take the next step? Contact Judith today and start your journey towards lasting, positive change. You can find more details at www.becomingyouinsideout.com.